let's say, what if looks are like the currency for women? What do you think is the currency for men? For young men, fresh out of college.
You don't have any currency as a young man fresh out of college. And that's because you don't have any currency as a man fresh out of college, a young man. When we're younger, the currency is looks for a woman. If you're really speaking about men, if we're speaking about males, then it's always looks. Right? And it's the same with a woman. And there's an asterisk next to this on both sides. For a man, as you age, it's not about looks when he looks at a woman. For a woman, as she ages, it's not about money when she looks at a man. But it's seemingly because, to a large extent, what's understood doesn't need to be discussed. So that prerequisite is so obvious that it's almost subconscious at that point. Right? It's like, would your head even turn for someone who's not attractive to you? Probably not. But the scope of attraction becomes larger. When you're younger, you'll probably tolerate some things that you wouldn't tolerate because the person has this thing that's the highest priority for you. In some instances, it's money. In some instances, it's looks. As you age, that may change. Right? You may want somebody that's loyal more than you want someone who's pretty. You may want someone who's loyal more than you want someone who's rich. Because having money or being attractive, well, not necessarily attractive, but pretty, doesn't guarantee a great experience. Right? You can meet a pretty woman. Oftentimes what happens when we see somebody that's attractive, both men and women, right? And we say, this person looks good. To look good is typically, that's not a closed statement. Typically, that's an open-ended statement. All right, so it's like, oh, this person looks good. Looks good at what? Sex. Typically, because that's what you're thinking about when you look at this person physically. We're not looking at them like, oh, she looks like she has an amazing personality, but that's not typically what's on your mind. So this person looks good at sex. After having had certain experiences with someone who looks good, you realize that one doesn't guarantee the other. And after having enough of those experiences, that prerequisite of looking good kind of fades to the background. Of course, you would still be attracted to someone who looks good, quote unquote. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you're younger, not so much. You'll tolerate someone with a bad attitude because it's summertime and she got these pom-pom shorts on. But at 35, you may not be so interested in the woman with the pom-pom shorts because you know what comes along with it in a lot of instances.
Another currency that we talked about then was like, you asked the question, why do I even pay attention to women?
Indeed, yeah.
That was really kind of like the
I remember this conversation.
The point of no return. That was the
I remember this conversation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was thinking also, like, attention is also a very big currency as a young man.
It's a bigger currency as a young woman. Because as a young man, you haven't reached your prime yet.
Mm-hmm.
You want attention for ego purposes. It's empty. In a sense where you want attention for things that you haven't actually proven yet. Right? And because you haven't proven it to yourself, you don't know what to do with the attention when you get it. What do I mean when I say you want attention for things you haven't proven yet? You want attention so you can feel like you're the man. But you haven't proven that you're the man. Not the man to anybody else, but the man to yourself. Right? What goal did you accomplish? Do you even have a goal? Right? Who did you become to celebrate? This concept of us being enough, intrinsically, yes. Right? Intrinsically, that's true. You have everything that you need within to succeed. Now you have to acknowledge that it's there and use it. Right? But in order to do that, we have to have certain experiences. And in a lot of instances, as a young man, you haven't had the challenges required in order to become the best version of yourself. You can be. Right? A lot of men, a lot of young men can really be something. But are they enough right now? Theoretically, yes. Again, intrinsically, you have the intrinsic value. Practically, no. Because you, one, don't know it's there. And if you do know that it's there, you probably don't know what to do with it just yet. So wanting the attention is rooted in vanity more than it is reality. Things that you actually have receipts for. For women, they typically feel like they typically feel like there is a biological clock that's ticking. And so they have to get the most out of their youth. So that's where the attention comes from, typically, for a young woman. As an older woman who had attention when she was younger, it becomes a norm. Part of the identity is attached to that, right? If you're someone that's been told that you're pretty your whole life, part of your identity is being pretty. And what validates you being pretty? Attention. The attention you get for being pretty. So when that attention begins to fade, oftentimes it's easy to begin to feel like, maybe I'm not pretty anymore. And if I'm not pretty anymore, am I still the person that I thought I was? Because again, being pretty is attached to the identity at that point. It's the same with men. Men are young. You look a certain way as a young man. You start to change as you age. Can you handle it?
Change in what way?
Physically. Right? If you're a young man that's considered attractive, and now you're aging, oftentimes men become more attractive as they age in society. At least that's the perceived notion. But that's because the experience is attached to a man at that point. So you actually are considered a man. You become an actual man. And that's the part that's attractive. But what happened to your six-pack? What happened to that, that smooth skin you used to have before a beard and hair bumps and things like that, right? That you have to learn to consider before your skin changes, before your hairline recedes. That's a big one for a lot of men. Right? So you do with that? Before you felt like you were halfway. You were cute, you had the body, you just didn't have the money, you didn't have the resources. And a lot of people underestimate how long it's going to take to actually acquire the resources. So now you have the resources, but you don't have the looks anymore. Right? So, again, what does that do to you? Men have a lot of these same identity crises that women have. We just don't have to hang our hats on it, because being attractive as a man physically was like a bonus. Really. What made you attractive as a man wasn't really all those things. Wasn't really the physical things so much. Right? Of course, it's being manly, but that doesn't. So it's a different type of attraction. Are you manly? But it's not, are you cute? Right? It's more like, are you loyal? Are you humble? Are you ambitious? Are you honest? Do you have integrity? Do you have dignity? Are you a provider? Are you a protector? You know, those are the things the qualities that make you attractive as a man, and do you personify those qualities? Right? It's not so much, are you cute? Because actually, if you are cute, in some instances, you'll be associated as like boyish. Right? Or if you're too attractive, right, like a Model-esque, there's a group of women that aren't even attracted to that. There's a group of women that's not attracted to a pretty boy. That's not considered manly to them. Right? And men do a lot of the same things that women do. Right? Women work out, men work out. Women want to look good as far as their clothing is concerned. Men want to look good as far as their clothing is concerned. Right? Men want to make sure that they're properly groomed. But women want to make sure that they're properly groomed. The healthier you are, the better you look. Right? Plus, the healthier you are, the better you feel, the better you function, the better you perform. So both sides want to do that. However, in some instances, the man wants to be acknowledged in a masculine way, and the woman wants to be acknowledged in a feminine way. Even though we both have both. And there's moments where you can acknowledge the masculinity in the woman and the femininity in the man. But traditionally speaking, a man wants to be acknowledged in the masculine way, and the woman in the feminine way.
How do you think that balance should work in this day and age, where when you're in a relationship, you can take on both roles? How should that be? Is there a way to divide that?
I think it depends on the couple. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that. There's this concept of masculinity and what that means. That's very questionable today. And then there's this concept of femininity and what that means, because it's almost invisible today. From a lot of women, or at least that's the way a lot of men feel. And some women feel that way also. But even though, traditionally speaking, there was this concept of masculinity, I think people underestimated how many men didn't fit into that mold. There's a large aspect of the population that are not alpha males. Alpha males have always been the minority. Right? It's the same with women. Alpha females have been a minority too. But perhaps the same exists on the other side, right? Because there's levels to both. There's levels to alpha, there's levels to beta, right? The lowest level of beta is probably a minority also. And I say that to say, perhaps the majority of people exist in the middle. And so it's a rather fluid experience going from relationship to relationship, because what works for one doesn't work for the other. And what does it mean? Like, how do you personify femininity? Right? And it seems as if in society today we've debased it to activities. Like, if you cook, does that make you feminine? If you do the dishes in a home, does that make you feminine? Are you now in a feminine role because you help around the house? If your masculinity was based on you not doing a dish, then perhaps you weren't ever masculine. Right? So, I think we're being reintroduced to ourselves in a way where we no longer can rest our loins on such simple characteristics, aligned with such simple activities when it comes to what it means to be masculine and feminine. Right? Is it attached to an actual physical activity, or is it attached to a way of being, a mentality, an emotional state, a spiritual awareness?
What is that way of being for the masculine?
I don't think society has clearly defined that yet. At least from what I can see. And perhaps that's the reason for a lot of young men feeling lost, and a lot of young boys not even wanting to be men. So oftentimes, if you're asking me what I think about it, masculinity is rigid. Masculinity is what keeps things in order. Right? Masculinity is what creates the boundary in society or in life. For example, this is why the concept of Mother Nature and Father Time makes sense. Time doesn't care about how you feel about anything or what you're doing. It is what it is. It's going to keep moving regardless to what you do in your life. It provides an opportunity for you to make certain decisions. But because of time, it also forces you to take accountability for those situations, those decisions. Nature does the same thing, but nature's fluid. Right? It's like water. Right? There's certain aspects of nature that are unforgiving, like gravity, but only for certain creatures in certain ways. Right? For example, some creatures are built to fly, others aren't. Right? So nature's more fluid. You don't find many straight lines in nature. Right? Time is different in that way. But time is less forgiving. But you can see both on either side. You can see masculinity in nature you can see the masculine edge, the aspect of masculine image, which is feminine, right? Mother Nature. For example, a tree. A tree, at the tree trunk and with its roots, it's masculine, right? Why? That keeps the tree from falling over, right? The trunk of a tree is stationary. But the objective of a tree, especially if it's surrounded by other trees, typically, is to grow as tall as it possibly can so it can get to the light, right? The taller a tree gets, the more likely, not only the stronger does the trunk have to be, but the more likely the tree is to bend. If the wind is blowing, the tree has to bend. If it doesn't bend, it breaks. Right? That's feminine energy, this bending. Right? Again, if it were masculine, it wouldn't bend. So when the wind blows hard enough, it would just break. But the masculine is still there, but it's at the trunk. That keeps the tree from falling over because that part of the tree is stationary. Right? This is the masculine feminine on earth. The rigidity in the masculine energy provides the boundaries, but it also provides the safety net. The femininity provides fluidity, but in its own way, it also provides a safety net. And that's how it works together. Even with time. Time seems linear, but it's cyclical, right? Which is why they would say history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. The same thing is not happening, the same detail, but conceptually the same thing is happening. Right? So it feels linear, but it's cyclical. Right? That's the fluidity in time. That fluidity is the feminine aspect of it. But it keeps moving forward. That's the masculine. That's the rigid aspect. What does being stagnant mean? They come up with that definition. Well, they come up with the meaning of that definition and how that, they come up with how that applies to their lives. Stagnant has a definition, but how does it apply to their lives at that moment? Why do they feel stagnant? Right? And are they stagnant? This is the definition of stagnant, something that's not moving. What do I consider movement in my life? Because very rarely are we actually stagnant. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. So is the thing that I'm doing, or are the things that I'm doing, is a lifestyle that I've chosen to live, pushing me forward, meaning toward the goal or away from the goal? Do I even have a goal? Right? And if I have a goal, am I really moving toward it? Not how I feel. Maybe I feel stagnant, but maybe I'm not actually stagnant. For a young man, you're in school, you have a part-time job, you have a hobby, you play a sport. On a day-to-day basis, that's probably all that you have time for at that point in your life. You're moving toward accomplishing greater understanding about a particular subject matter of your choice. That's the education, which hopefully propels you into being a productive citizen of society in a very particular way, professionally. It sounds like progress if you're in school and you're actually applying yourself. Right? You're working, so you're getting some real life experience alongside education in a formal way. You also put yourself in an environment professionally that allows you to gain some exposure to at least begin to understand the importance of soft skills and how that can help you in your life. And you play a sport, so you have a sense of community. And it helps you improve your health. That seems pretty progressive. But if you do that day in and day out for 4 years, pursuing a college degree, you can feel stagnant. Right? It's the same thing as another test. It's another day at work. That's one way to look at it. Or you can look at it and say, hey, yeah, there's another test. Meaning that time is progressing. Meaning that I'm getting further or closer to the finish line. Meaning that I'm getting more intelligent. Because last year, I wasn't in a position to be able to take this test. So one is feeling. It's another test. It's another day at the office. It's another game. Playing football. I'm doing the same thing day in, day out, year after year. That feels stagnant. The other one is actual reality, facts. Right? I'm not taking the same test I took last year. I have another year of experience on this job. I have another year of connection with my teammates, with this playing the sport. We're not in the same place that we were in last year. But that comes from actually thinking critically about the situation and focusing on facts, leaving room for your feelings. We're focusing more on facts so that your feelings don't distract you from what's happening. And then once you understand the facts and you understand that you're not stagnant, then it's, why do I feel like this? What must I believe in order to feel this way? And should I do something about that belief? Do I even really still believe that? Or have I just been, is this somehow attached to the person that I used to be? The person that I defined myself as 5 years ago? But when was the last time you defined yourself? Did you define yourself today? Why are you still going off for the definition from 5 years ago? Maybe if you redefine yourself today, you realize that belief is no longer real for you. So there's no reason for you to feel the way that you feel. That's not a real thing. And then the feelings can shift. So the objective is to highlight the importance of critical thought. And that would be the same for a person. And this is just an example of how that could play out for a person if they're feeling stagnant. A lot of things can cause a scarcity mentality within young men. But perhaps one of the more potent reasons for men or young men to have a scarcity mentality is society not considering you having any intrinsic value as a man. Right? Being born man. What's the value of that? Right? Like, I can see the argument against this, where in a lot of countries, being born female automatically puts you in second place, right? Whereas being born man is celebrated. However, in Western society, that's typically not the case. In Western society, if you're born a female, you're born a star. You have intrinsic value. You have a vagina. Right? You don't have intrinsic value as a man until you're successful and is publicly noted. Then you have intrinsic value. That's when you become valuable. That's not even intrinsic value. That's extrinsic value. That's external value. It's something that people can see. Women are considered the gateway to the supernatural in Western society. And that's where the value of being a woman comes from. Men are not considered anything. That's part of the reason why the woman, for so many years, was told she's the prize. And she was something that a man had to earn. So first, you needed to earn value in general. Then you had to be valuable enough, you had to earn enough value to even be considered by a woman. But there was no intrinsic value in you. Right? You're not something to be protected and be guarded with someone else's life. You are something that will grow up and guard something else with your life. Because almost as if intrinsically that other thing's life is more important than yours. That can give a man a scarcity mindset, feeling like there's not enough for him. Okay. And so his actions become rooted in fear. Fear that he won't live up to what it means to be a man. And there's so many aspects of that, of quote unquote being a man, that he has to consider if he's equipped for. And if the answer is no, which the answer will be no. Because no man is equipped for all of the things that it means to be a man. They used to overcompensate. And even the need to feel like you should, the feeling of feeling like you need to overcompensate is rooted in scarcity.
You think that's where a lot of so-called like macho alpha behavior come from? Not being alpha, but acting alpha.
I don't think you can act alpha. think that you can demonstrate to the world that you want to be alpha. You have an interest in it, even though you may not be it. And I think that's the machismo that you're talking about. Right? That's someone that is saying that they want to be considered that guy. But they aren't. They're not that guy. Because masculinity is a protective energy. It's not a threatening energy. It's only threatening when it has to be. So, the guy that's making everybody feel uncomfortable, thinking that's what masculinity is. It's just a guy that's saying, I would like to be alpha, even though I'm not. He's just making that known to the world that he wants to be. But the objective of masculinity it's nurturing. Right? If you want to provide for something, you want to nurture it. And then you provide a protective environment for that thing to grow. That's nurturing. So it's not really an energy that's trying to tear things down. That's not the masculine energy. That's aggression. And oftentimes we've confused aggression for masculine. That's not the same. I think sometimes. Not always, but sometimes, yes. Especially in environments where aggression is rewarded. You grow up in the hood, aggression is very much rewarded. Because that's the only feeling that a man is allowed to feel. Anger. You can, but it probably doesn't have positive consequences for you to express hurt, sadness. There are very limited situations where you can do that. Somebody has to die. Typically. Right? And they have to die in a peaceful way. Like your mom has to pass away. Your grandmother has to die. Your brother gotta die. Right? That's the only time when it's okay to be sad in the hood. And if your brother dies, like if somebody kills him, and even then there's no real room for sadness, there's only room for aggression. That's initiating a war, essentially. Right? So there's no room for sadness in that. So the only feeling you can really feel is happy or angry. So in those type of environments, yeah, it's easy for a woman to confuse aggression with masculinity. In those type of environments, you have to fight to really express masculinity. It's almost as if I have to meet the aggression with aggression in order to even create a window for true masculinity. Because in the hood, really the only thing that's respected is violence and money. And typically money is the reason for the violence. So if I don't position myself as someone who's very capable, then there's really no opportunity for me to showcase anything. I'm capable violently. Right? If there's somebody in the hood that's aggressive and I don't showcase myself as a potential threat to that person, then there's no room for my voice. There's only room for the voice of the person who's the most aggressive in the room, who's the most capable in the room. And that's what I mean by aggressive. I don't just mean somebody with a bad attitude. I mean somebody that can execute. So if I don't position myself as someone, or if there's two people in the room and one doesn't position themselves as capable or more capable than the other, there's no real room for that person's voice, typically. Especially amongst young men. In the hood, that's typically all you have. Because many people don't get older. And even less people grow up. So, yeah, it could be confusing for them. Not all of them. And not all the time in every situation. But I can think of a few spotted circumstances where it may be confusing for them. And this is one. Self-development is something that we typically have to pursue. Improvement is something that we have to pursue, typically. Right? You always have a choice to grow. You can do that involuntarily or voluntarily. Well, that doesn't make sense. You always have a choice to grow. You can do that actively, right? You can be very proactive about that, or you can be reactive to that, right? Because every day life is asking us to grow. Every day. It's just so.
Go on.
Right? Life is coming, knocking on your door saying, it's time to change. It's time to change. Please change. If you don't listen to it, eventually, life demands that you change. Or you have pain. It's not asking anymore. So that's what I mean when you can do it proactively or reactively. Right? Proactively is, let me try to do everything that I can while I still have my parents. Right? If I'm a young teenager, let me really take heed to what my parents are saying in regard to education, etc. Let me try to learn as much as I can. Because I can do that now within a secure environment where I don't have as many responsibilities. I don't have as many distractions. Let me keep my head on straight and let me put the work in. That's proactively pursuing self-development. Right? Reactively pursuing self-development is your mom dies. Your father dies. Now you have to level up as a person. Because that safety net that you had to fall back on, you don't have it anymore. So now you have to put yourself in position to not need it. Right? So that's would be the difference between somebody that's proactively pursuing it, so that they don't have to wait for something tragic to happen to their parent. And then someone that's reactive. They did wait, and now they're being forced into this shift.
Nice. Can you tie that back, if possible, to then you're becoming the change that you want to have, like becoming the new person?
Indeed, you become the new person because your parents died. You become a person who's self-sufficient. You become a person that takes initiative in their lives. You become a person that proactively pursues self-development. You become a person who's constantly seeking education themselves. Right? Not just for a piece of paper, a degree. Right? You become a person who projects themselves into the world as the person that you want to be. Because now you can truly see the value of the person you want to be. Because you are that person. Right? And so because you've done that, because you become that, you can do these things. You can walk differently, you can speak differently, you can dress differently, you can think differently. Now, new opportunities present themselves. Because you pursue life in a very different way. You've created different types of relationships that you wouldn't have created 2-3 years ago.
But is this always, because a parent passing is a very, like you said, like a reactive thing. Can you also become the new individual proactively instead of reactively?
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. You're in pursuit of self-development. Right? You can decide to become a different person without that. You can look at your life and say, this is not it. What is it? And then reverse engineer from there. Okay, yeah, I have to do this. Okay, yeah, but who do I have to be in order to do that? If I know all of this, why am I not doing it? Why haven't I done it? There's a reason I haven't done it, because I'm not the kind of person to do this. So, what kind of person would do this? And is that the kind of person I want to be? Because if that's not the kind of person I want to be, then why even have this goal? If that's the kind of person that I'm interested in, how do I make the transition from the person I am today to that person? What are some habits that I can develop so that I can become this type of person subconsciously? Right? But that takes some deep work as well. In order to change the subconscious, you have to believe it. I just say, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to do this every day. You have to believe it. So you have, as much as you're working on doing the thing, you also have to work on believing the thing.
How do you do that?
Actually reprogramming yourself.
And that's the deep work.
That's the deep work.
Can you touch the surface on that? Like kind of what is, because I know we can't get into all of that right now, but.
Absolutely. What led you to become the person that you are now?
Okay.
Why are you behaving this way? Really? Not like, oh, I'm not the logical reason, the emotional reason. Not, oh, I want to do this because I thought if I did this, it would lead to this. We all do things for a feeling. Everything else is in between. Right? It starts with a feeling, it ends with a feeling. All of the thought, the rationale, all of that, that's all that happens in between. But it starts with a feeling and it ends with a feeling.
How does that translate into belief then, the feeling?
Because if you don't believe it, your mind doesn't believe it. Your subconscious. If it's not a real thing, if you don't embody it, your subconscious doesn't believe it. You can say it, but until you attach an emotion to it, it's not real.
And so in order to attach an emotion to it, you need to first look at like what emotions have made you who you've become now. in order to reprogram?
You don't need to do it that way. That's a way to do it.
All right.
So the first thing is confronting yourself, understanding what you are now. What are you now? Who are you now? Do those two match? Sometimes you have 10 characteristics, right? But you really only entertain 2 of them. That often happens when we're in survival mode. We don't feel like there's space for the other 8.
Yeah.
They're there. That's really who we are. But we don't show up as that. That happened to me in my life. I tried to ignore certain characteristics that I had, and it just created confusion because it was very challenging for me personally to ignore them. I tried being a player. I was a horrible player. Horrible. Why? Because I treated every woman like a lady. And so when you do that, one, I attracted broken people because I was broken. Right? And also, I only knew how to fix things. I didn't know how to build things. Right? I knew how to put things back together that were broken. So that felt like building, but it wasn't building, it was fixing. Right? And then I would treat those women like ladies. So of course they develop an affinity for you. But if you're gonna be a player, especially at a young age, making everybody feel like they're the one, they don't know how to process that. They don't know how to process being treated well as someone who's rarely ever treated well, but yet they're not your girl. I did not know how to process interacting with a female without treating her like a lady, and still being able to identify or recognize the person in the mirror. I didn't know how to do that. So even though I was being disrespectful, right, because I'm not making this person the one, I'm overcompensating for it by being very kind to this person, thinking that they would understand it. Some would say that's a sign of maturity. If you do that now as an adult, that makes sense. As a child, not so much. Right? As an adult, we can understand that we can have a good time together, we're not together. But as a child, when I was coming up, that wasn't really a thing. So much. At least not the woman that I was interested in. Because I was interested in the woman who liked monogamy, and because I was actually interested in monogamy. So that's the confusion. That's these things, these other characteristics popping up, even though you don't want to really create space for them.
Gotcha.
Right? Now you're in survival mode. I'm in survival mode. I'm afraid to be vulnerable, but I don't know how to treat you disrespectfully. So I'm going to cheat on you. Right? When you're in front of me, everything is good. You're it. But because I can't have myself liking you too much, I gotta myself a little thing. I gotta entertain other women to keep myself from being too involved with you emotionally. So that's an example. I wasn't really ever a player. Really. I don't have the characteristics of a player. I don't want to share my energy with a multitude of women. Period. but I was afraid to be vulnerable. So being a player felt like the only option. But it was a poor option for me. Because all that meant was I would treat every woman like she was my girl. And she wasn't. So that's that, the survival mode. I gotta get mine. I don't feel like there's enough for me. So I gotta get mine without giving to you. We gotta have a partial exchange. You get a piece of me, I get a piece of you, but we don't give each other to each other completely. Scarcity mindset, there's not enough. You're not enough. You're not enough. Maybe I'm not enough. So you're always kind of responding to what the other person does, even though yours, regardless of what they do, you're going to hold something back. Because a letdown is too hurtful. And because I'm in fear of a letdown, I'm not really living. That's survival mode. And that's what happens with our characteristics. You're not really a liar, but you feel like you need to lie. Because there's not enough love in the world for people to consider who you really are and value you for it. It's a dog-eat-dog world. So you find yourself out here trying to make a way for yourself. And you lean toward the characteristics that seem to be more fruitful. At least in the short term.
What would you recommend to keep people from like stop doing that and be like their complete selves? Would you even recommend that, by the way?
Depends on the circumstance. If you in the hood, I hear all the time, people ask me this all the time, my family, mainly some of the friends that I have from the neighborhood that I grew up in, they would ask me, how did you do this? If you want to get out of the hood, you have to do out of the hood shit. The catch is, you have to do out of the hood things while you're still in the hood. Because that's how you become the person that does the things to get out of the hood and maintain it. You only know if you're that person when you're tested. It's easy to tell yourself you're that person. But if I'm saying, nah, I'm not a hood dude, and as soon as some hood thing happens, I react like a hood dude. I'm a hood dude. But if I'm telling myself I'm not a hood dude, and instead of reacting, I respond when something happens in the hood, in a way that really exemplifies who I really am, and not who I became because I was on the block. Then I find myself eventually in a space where I'm no longer on the block, and I'm in a space or in an environment that reflects who I really am. But there's a multitude of habits that haven't changed for that. I was still in the hood for 7 years, even though I had that mentality. It's not like I thought like that, and then next year I was in a different space. No. Because I didn't understand all of the other things that needed to change. I still had some other habits that were very hood-like. How I dressed, how I spoke. Certain things that I believed that would have put me back into a hood mentality. that I didn't even notice at that time. So changing who you are is a process. Changing the things you do can happen faster once you go through the process of changing who you are. But it's important to take a holistic approach to all of it. And think about who you are every day. Define yourself every day. Because otherwise you may change one thing, maybe even two. That's not a mindset shift. A mindset shift is a perspective that changes how you think about most things. And that will help you shift how you do most things. When do you go to bed? When do you wake up? What do you eat? Who do you hang out with? Where do you live? What are you interested in driving? How much money are you interested in making? How are you interested in making that money? Who do you want to make that money with? When you make the money, what are you going to do with it? What's the point of making it? You want options, you want choices. Great. What choice would you make with the money? What is your ideal day? If you had one day that you can relive every day, conceptually, nobody wants to no one, but a lot of us don't want to live all the details of a day the same way every day. But conceptually, if you can read the same day over and over again, what would it be? Who would it be with? Where would you be at? What would you be doing? The answer to these questions are much different today than they were 10 years ago.
So what for you would be the objective of all this coaching that you want to start doing?
My objective is to help six-figure earners who experience imposter syndrome, who suffer from imposter syndrome, to build a life and career or business around their true identity so that they can experience both fortune and fulfillment. But people don't see that. So perhaps that's not a nice niche. What do I mean by that? I mean, people don't necessarily believe the message. They believe the messenger, which is the importance of brand, right? They have to see what you're saying on you. And also, just speaking about fortune and fulfillment, people typically don't believe that they can have fulfillment without the fortune, which is why they pursue the money first. So, it's an interesting niche, to say the least. Because the easier thing would be to niche down in business and figure out a way to, well, not just in business in general, like niche down to figure out what is it that we can actually choose that is very particular and something that people can see, me embody, and also something that can get like quick results in. fulfillment doesn't come quickly. Fortune doesn't come quickly. Right? Typically. Sometimes, yeah, you have the influencer that just blows up crazy in a year, multi-millionaire, etc. But chances are it's not fulfillment. That's the fortune part, but not fulfillment. So, and that also means different things to different people. So how do you really drill down into that? I still want to do that, which is why I'm super fine. I'm very much okay putting in some more work and it taking a little bit more time. And thankfully, I don't need to.
You don't know.
I want to do this for my spirit, but I don't need to do this for financial reasons. Right? So I don't have that kind of motivation.
And any chances of you help people to even get to the six-figure earnings? Is there any room for that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Perhaps I need to niche down in a way that is a bit different. The reason why I was even having this conversation with myself is people think six figures is more than what it is. Of course, we all know six figures is anything between $100,000 a year and $999,000 a year. Yes. Right? $999,999, excuse me. We know what it means literally. So essentially that's a large range. And oftentimes people are just trying to get to six figures. 100,000, 200,000. And they imagine their lives being something that chances are it won't be. Even though they're making more money. And that's, if you don't see business as a game, that could be disheartening to you. Right? So it comes back to the fulfillment piece. Right? Because if that's what's fulfilling to you, then the number's just gonna grow. So you're always gonna be unfulfilled too. Right? Because today's 100,000. When you get 100,000, it'll be 250. Because these are the milestones, right? You get the six figures, 100,000. Okay, now I need to get the $250,000. Get the $250,000, I get the $500,000. Get the $500,000, I want a $4 million. These are the milestones. Right? But if that's where the fulfillment is going to come from, you're not going to be fulfilled. Because the fulfillment is rooted in fortune. And then you don't get to that without being an entrepreneur. Typically. Right? Yes, there's some edge cases where you have these extraordinary businesses, many of which today are, well, it's always been few and far between to build an extraordinary business, so I can't say that. But typically, as an entrepreneur within these organizations, you can become very successful. But in most instances, it's the entrepreneurs that become unsuccessful. And then the question becomes, do you really want to build a great business? Or do you just want to live well? Right? Do you want to make the next Apple? Do you want to create a business that's going to contribute great things to society? Or do you just want a high salary? Those are very different realities. You make some money, but Apple, you focus on a product, you have an amazing product, you put it out into the market, you do anything and everything to make sure that product becomes a success. You make money from that product, you take all the money that you made from that product and you put it directly back into your business. because you want to create something that's great for the world. If I just want to live well, then I create the best, maybe not even the best product. I create a product. I put some good marketing behind it. I put it out into the world. I make some money. I cook the book so that it looks like I'm reinvesting into my company, but I'm really spending the money on myself. Which one do you want to do? Both of them are entrepreneurs, but very different types of entrepreneurs. So, I think perhaps that question is not asked often enough. Because in this world now where we have this like entrepreneurship craze, the objective seems to be only the money, not to create something great.
Why do you think that is?
Because that's what's presented, typically, at least in our culture. And I think across the board, really, because our culture impacts the world. Right? So it's just all about flexing. It's all about flexing. And then you have, a subculture where they're really trying to create dope things. Right? But in most instances, it seems like people just want to live well. They want the luxurious lifestyle. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish more people would see entrepreneurship as like an opportunity to contribute to like a shared economy. Very little emphasis, what I see online, really talking about that.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, that's already like a business model out there, and people either start a business like that, but they're trying to cut costs so they can be even more cheaper and profitable, or they're selling courses. I feel like these are the two pathways nowadays that I see a lot in the environment, this ecosystem.
Yeah, it goes back to leverage. One, what kind of business are you interested in creating? What kind of leverage are you interested in creating for yourself? And in the beginning, the only real leverage you have is credibility. What have you done that makes you a credible source of anything? And then once you build that credibility, you can cash in, you can use it. Right? And that's the leverage. Cashing in the credibility. That's when you know how successful you've been at creating it.